Okay, people, we're back again. Telephone number 0861 058 262, or you can email to info@learnextra.co.za. We have a caller on the line. Apparently, she wants November 2009, question 3.1. Who am I speaking to? Hello?
Hello?
Who is talking?
Again.
It's who?
Zandisiwe.
Lampusiwe.
Zandisiwe. Z-A-N-D-I.
Spell it for me, darling. Spell.
Z-A-N-D-I.
Z-A-N-D-I.
S-I-W-E.
Zandil. Z-A-N-D-I.
S-I-W-E.
S-I. Okay, let's fix it. Z-A-N-D-I-S.
Yeah.
And then?
W-E.
Zandisiwe.
Zandisiwe.
Zandisiwe. Okay, Zandisiwe, listen, darling. If you're battling with this pedigree chart, you've got to understand one thing. That when they give you a pedigree chart in an exam, you must go, this is easy. They're giving you everything you need to know, all right? They're saying to you, here it is on a platter. We're giving you everything. You don't even have to remember anything, all right? So don't get scared when you see this. I don't know what it is. Learners, when they see graphs, when they see a pedigree chart, they think, oh my gosh. Don't. You must say thank you, thank you, thank you. It's the easiest way to do it. So look at the question here, and it says, it is possible to trace the inheritance, remember we're dealing with genetics, of characteristics such as blood groups and genetic disorders over a number of generations. So every line here will be a generation. So this will be one generation, this will be another generation, and this will be a third generation. Do you see?
Yes.
Are you happy with that?
I'm happy.
Okay, now Zandisiwe, the pedigree diagram, that's this thing, below shows the blood groups of individuals of a family. Now we can see they're individuals of a family. The blood groups are indicated inside the circles, okay, or squares. Now the blood groups of individual W and X are not shown. All right, so we've got to figure them out. Okay, but what they also tell you here is that the circles are girls and the squares are boys. So the circles are females and the squares are male. All right, are you with me so far? Okay, now the first thing we need to do is figure this out. So make a little note for yourself here on the side. And you say, because remember this is your paper, you can write on it. So you say, okay, we have blood group A, we have blood group B, we have blood group AB, and we have blood group O. All right, those are the 4 blood groups. Why? Because if you listened to my call before, there is co-dominance. Between A and B. So they are both dominant. And poor O is always recessive. Okay, so if we see an O anywhere here, we must know that there are 2 O's. So we say, right, blood group O, that means this one is OO. Blood group O, this one is actually also OO. Now, if we look here, and I'm working backwards, all right, we have this child here is blood group A. And they have a partner, and that partner and them have a baby OO. It means this one must be AO, and this one must be either AO or BO. Okay? Or it could also be OO, but we're not quite sure. You understand that?
Yes.
All right. If we look to this child here, or at least this parent here, we need to know what they are. All we have to know is that this one crossed with that one is going to give you an OO, so it must have an O somewhere. This blood group here, A and B, came from O and A and B here. So now if the one child is A and the other child is B, what blood group would this one here be? Because there's OO. And none of these babies here are OO. So therefore this parent must be A, B. Does that make sense?
It does.
Do you understand?
Yes.
Okay, now let's have a look at these questions. And it says, write down all the possible genotypes. That means what is in the genes. Okay. What does phenotype mean? Sandisizwe, what does phenotype mean?
Phenotype is a physical appearance.
That's what you're physically going to be able to see, all right? Whereas
Yes.
genotype is you can't see that. It's in the genes, all right? So the genotype of the individuals, W and X. So all we do is we just scoot up here a little bit. And W can only be AB. It can't be anything else. Do you see that?
Yes.
Sandisizwe, do you see that, Mahan?
I
Look,
can see that. Yes.
this is, to be O, it must be OO. But if we're going to have a baby here that's A and we're going to have a baby that's B, then that baby must be BO as well. You understand? The parent here is O, so this one must be AB automatically. But it's with this parent here, this X, that we have a bit of a problem. Because X is going to produce a baby that is OO together with this one that's A. You see? So therefore, it's going X is going to be AO or BO or OO. And what they did here is they gave you 2 marks for each of these because they wanted to see that you understand the possible genotypes for W and for X. Does this make sense?
It does.
You happy, Mahan?
I'm happy.
As long as you remember that A, B, and AB, they show codominance. So in other words, if I have an A, it means it is either AA or AO. If I have a B, it's either BB or BO. If I have AB, well, that means I've got A and B. And if I have O, I can only have OO. All right. That's the rule for blood groups. And let me tell you something now. You are guaranteed of a question on blood grouping somewhere in your paper, whether it's a multiple choice question, whether it's a long question, a short question, you will get one on the blood group typings. You must know that A and B are co-dominant. So if there's an A and a B, it equals AB. Okay, now they talk about hemophilia. And hemophilia is a blood clotting disorder. And in other words, it is the blood cannot clot properly. And if those people get bumped, they can actually bleed to death. So it's not a very nice thing to have, and it is genetically passed on. So it is a genetic disorder. Explain why mainly males suffer from this disorder. Now, hemophilia is attached to the sex chromosome. So on the X and the Y chromosome, that's where your hemophilia, the alleles are going to be located. So if we look at this, we say, right, in females, we have X and X. Those are the sex chromosomes in females. All right? And XY is in male. Those are your sex chromosomes in males. Those are the gonosomes that you find in females and in males, all right? Now, we have this gene for hemophilia sits on the female chromosome. Let's make it purple. So it sits over here somewhere. It sits on this part. And if we have a crossing with this X and that X, there is an allele here that will compensate the hemophilia gene. But if this X ends up with this Y, there isn't one here. You see? There isn't a leg for the Y chromosome. And if that is the case, there is no allele to compensate it, because the hemophilia gene is what we call recessive. You follow? So
Yes.
any other gene is going to dominate and suppress it. But if there is nothing here, there is absolutely nothing here on the male, on the Y chromosome, there isn't anything to compensate it. So what happens? We end up with that crossing. If that happens to be the crossing, the poor male will then get it. So if we do the crossing, it looks like this. Okay, we've got our gametes, and we have during meiosis, they are going meiosis. You'll have independent segregation, so we'll have XX and XY. So we're now going to take our little hemophilia gene, and we're going to put it there. Okay, so we follow on and we say, right, that's XX, and this is going to be XX, but it's going to have the little gene for hemophilia there. And then we have XY, and we have XY. And sitting on this chromosome, sitting here, we're going to have the hemophilia gene. So here, there is a compensating, let's use another color, I'll do black. There's a compensating gene here that is going to be dominant and dominate over that recessive one. In other words, this baby here will end up being, little girl will end up being a carrier. All right, she'll carry hemophilia. This little girl here is going to be perfect. She will not have the gene. This little boy here will be perfect. He will not have hemophilia. And this poor little one here, there's nothing here to compensate for that gene. So this little boy here will end up with hemophilia. Okay, so the little boy ends up getting it. And that is the answer to this question. Okay, so explain why mainly males suffer from this order, because the hemophilia gene is recessive and is carried on the female X chromosome. And when there is a crossing and the female X chromosome ends up with the male Y chromosome, there is no gene on the allele to compensate. So they end up with hemophilia. An interesting point there is that long ago, King Alexander had, or Prince Alexander rather, of the Tsarian and the Russian emperors and empresses, their child had hemophilia. And there was a chap called Rasputin, and he ended up with a whole bunch of money and a whole bunch of power because he was able to help the child who had hemophilia. Not really. I mean, he used to just put leeches on him, and the leeches used to suck all the blood out of the poor child. So, but that is the problem, okay? Hemophilia is a lack of blood clotting. All right. Is there anything else I can help you with, Mahan? Sunday Sizwe?
I don't have a question now, but I will call you if I had another question.
Okay, perfect. So I can say goodbye to you?
Yes.
Okay, fine. Cheers, hun. Study hard. Okay, people, over to the ad break.